Welcome! Today I'm going to teach you how to crochet this spooky spiderweb collar. It's the perfect Halloween costume for your pet. It's a simple pattern and I'll do my best to keep this video beginner friendly. I'll walk you through everything from crocheting the spiderweb to making the spiders and attaching it all together. All right, let's get started. So the yarn I use is called Lucky Ball yarn, and you'll see, I don't know if you can see on camera, but it's very like tubular. It's not like regular yarn. Maybe this scraps better, but it's not like normal yarn. It's very similar to the Woobles Easy Peasy Yarn, so it's great for beginners. I actually learned how to crochet through Woobles. I ended up going with Lucky Ball yarn because there was less of it and I just have like way too much yarn. I still have some left over. So Woobles might be more bang for your buck. I'm not positive about that, so don't hold me to it. But you'll see it's made out of cotton and nylon, and the nylon gives it some stretch, which is great for when we're putting it over our pet's head. It can be a little bit more forgiving. So you can use any type of yarn you want. I would make sure it has some like nylon or just is a little bit stretchy so it can kind of bounce like that. But yeah, I just really like the thickness and the look of this one for the web. And then for the spiders, I used a DK weight yarn. I sized down the weight of the yarn because I didn't want them to be too big for the web. They're already kind of big, but that's what I did there. For the web yarn, I used a 5.5mm hook, and then the spiders was a 3.5mm hook. Then I used the basics like stitch markers, a needle, and scissors. And then this time around, I did some blocking. So I used a whole bunch of pins, a blocking board or blocking mat, whatever you want to call it, and a steamer. This just helps the piece hold its shape better and kind of flattens it out. I don't usually block my pieces, so if you want to skip it, it's probably not that big of a deal. If you don't have a blocking mat or blocking board, but you still want to block it, there's probably a creative way you can still figure it out. Maybe you could just steam it and push it out flat with just the steam. In the past, I used to put pins in an old yoga mat, but Wrigley unfortunately tore that apart, so I had to get a real blocking mat. But yeah, if you have any creative, unique ideas on ways to block things without a blocking mat, leave it in the comments and hopefully it'll help someone. And now it's time to get started. You might also be wondering why I'm not working with white. White's kind of harder to see on video, and I want to make sure you guys can see what I'm doing. So we're making this like burnt orange, reddish yarn, spiderweb. One thing I've noticed working with this type of yarn is there's always like a break in the yarn, and I don't know what it's actually called, but when it's like tied back together. And it's kind of annoying. You can usually hide it in other crochet projects, but when we're working with like mostly chains, which we will be, it's harder to hide. So this is the start of the yarn, and I'm just gonna cut this off and hope that it doesn't happen later on in the ball of yarn. So we're gonna start by making a foundation chain. This is way too short, but just to kind of show you. So this chain will be this center part right here that goes around our pet's head. So we need to make sure that the chain is the length of our pet's neck and not too tight because we pull this over their head and we wanna make sure it fits without squeezing them. One thing to consider too is that we'll be working stitches into this chain. And once we add those stitches, it kind of stretches it out a little bit more. When I first made it, I thought I made the chain the right length. And once I add the stitches, it got too big. So I had to undo it and redo it. So you might find yourself playing around with it a little bit. But that's all part of the journey. So the most important rule for making your foundation chain is that it has to be a multiple of 6. So you'll take 6 times a number, which will equal the amount of chains you put into your foundation chain. So I did 6 times 8, which equals 48. We do this because if you look at the columns of the spider web, there's these little gaps in between, and we start out with 6 chains in between each column of the web. If you look at mine, I have 8 columns. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that's where the math kind of plays into the making of our collar. Hopefully that's clear for you. So I'm gonna start by chaining 48 because my chosen number is 6 times 8, which equals 48. You might have a different number. Just make sure that whatever your number is, you can divide it by 6 and it makes an even number. To start a chain, we need to make a slip knot. So hold the yarn like you normally would and then wrap it around your pointer finger twice. So there's 2 loops. And then with these 2 fingers, I hold the yarn. Now I'm gonna take the back loop, lift it up and over in front of the front loop. Now I'm gonna take this loop, the new back loop, right here, and lift it up and over and off the finger, and that makes a little knot. There it is. So put my hook in, tighten the chain, and don't make your first chain too tight because we'll be working into this later. So now I'm gonna chain 48. You might be doing it 2 or whichever multiple of 6 that you decided on. So 1, 2, 3, 47, 48. There we go, I have my chain 48. So now we have our foundation chain and we need to connect it to make our head hole like this right here. So before I do that, I'm actually gonna take a stitch marker and add it into chain 48, for me at least, so into the very last chain. So right there, that last chain that we made, I'm gonna take this out so it's easier. So that's our very last chain, and it was my chain 48. And I'm gonna put a stitch marker in it so I can remember this spot for later, if it lets me. Come on. There we go. Now my last chain is marked. So to connect the sides, we need to make sure that the top of the chain is facing up. So see that where we have the perfect V's? That's the top. This is what the back side looks like. It has these, I don't know what to call it, but like center stitches down the middle, but this is what the back side looks like. We want the top to be facing up. So make sure the top is facing up all the way down, kind of like just a twist sometimes. So I'm gonna take this end down here and just kind of slide it around to like a C. So these 2 sides are parallel and the top is facing the top all the way around. Now we're gonna be working into our very first chain, this one right here. You see the V, here's the bottom V, there's the top V, coming straight up from that. We're gonna be working into this stitch and we wanna go into that top V right there, the top side. So I'm gonna re-grab my yarn, like I'm gonna work with it. And then I'm gonna pick this up with the top facing up. It's hard to do on camera. And then I'm gonna just do a slip stitch into that first chain, kind of coming out the top. And there we go, now it's connected. So for our first row, we're gonna be working a single crochet into each stitch. But for our first single crochet of the row, or I should say round, we're working in rounds now. So for our first single crochet for the round, we're actually gonna just do a chain 1 and that's gonna count as a single crochet. Make sure you don't do it too tight like I did for my first chain here and it was hard to work into because we'll be working into this later. So there's my first chain 1, which is a single crochet. Now I need to go into the next stitch, which is right here. And I'm gonna work into that top loop, kind of like before. I gotta use my fingers with this because I did it too tight. And do a single crochet, so yarn over, pull through, and then yarn over through the 2 loops. And then we're gonna keep doing that all the way around. I'll show you again. So there's the next chain I'm working into. I'm gonna go in the center, the top, yarn over, pull through, yarn over through the 2 loops. And then keep doing that all the way around. So the next chain, here's the V. I'm gonna go kind of into the top. So I'm gonna jump ahead and pause the camera, but keep working all the way around. I'll see you right before I finish. Okay, I'm back and it's all twisted up, but I've done a single crochet all the way around our circle, almost. I have 2 chains left. There's one right here, and then there's the one with the stitch marker in it. So the reason I put the stitch marker right here is because right after there is a slip stitch that we made when we joined the round, and I always accidentally work into that slip stitch thinking it's the last stitch. If you do that, it's really not that big of a deal, but I'm trying to do it right for you guys. Okay, so here's my next chain. I'm gonna do a single crochet into that, and then take that stitch marker out and work into that last chain. There you go, we're done with round 1. So there's the slip stitch we did to join the round, which looks like a sneaky last chain. But we don't want to work into that. We're going to be working into that chain 1 we did. That will be our first single crochet. There's our first actual single crochet. So now I need to work into that, and I'm going to do a slip stitch right into this. I said don't do it too tight because it'll be hard to work into, and here I didn't even follow my own rules. But there you go. So I got into that chain 1, and then I'm going to yarn over and just pull through both stitches to make a slip stitch. So now we have just slip stitch into that first chain 1 that we made. And now we need to begin the columns of the web. Here we are. We want to go up and over. So I'm going to call this the height and the width. So for the height, normally we're doing double crochets, but to start that, we're going to do a chain 3, which is going to count as our first double crochet. 1, 2, 3. So that's our height. So now we need to do the width. Like I said before, each column on this part is divided by 6 stitches. So we want to make this first row a little bit longer than 6. So we're going to chain 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that will be a total of 11 chains, 8 plus 3. I just want to kind of break it up to kind of show you the purpose. So we just finished our chain and we kind of need to bring it over here. To do that, we need to count 6 stitches across. So we're going to kind of see where we started. We have the chain coming out from right there. So I'm going to be counting with the next stitch. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is our 6th stitch. I'm going to kind of hold it right here so I remember my spot. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now I'm going to be working a double crochet into the 6th stitch right here. So I want to make sure to hold it tight because when I'm working with chains and doing a double crochet, sometimes they can get loose. I'm going to start by yarning over and then into that 6th stitch, yarn over, pull through. Now there are 3 loops on my loop, and there's 3 loops on my hook. I'm going to go yarn over through the first 2, yarn over through the second 2. And then there is our first double crochet. So you'll see we have our first 3 stitches counting as our double crochet, then 8 across, and then our first double crochet. We worked into the 6th stitch, so there should be 5 crochets in between, or 5 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Great. So now to go on, we need to chain 8 again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then we need to count out 6. So we just worked into this stitch right here. You can see where it's pulling out. And then I'm going to start counting with the next one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So there's my 6th stitch right there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I'm going to do a double crochet again into the sixth stitch. Oops. So to do a double crochet, you yarn over once, and we'll go from the bottom up into that sixth stitch, yarn over, pull through, yarn over through the first 2 loops, yarn over through the next 2 loops. Here we go. Now we're just going to repeat this all the way around. I'll show you one more time. Chain 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Then we count 6 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, I almost went to 7. 6. So I'm going to do a double crochet into that 6th stitch. Yarn over into that stitch. Yarn over, pull through. Yarn over for the first 2. Yarn over through the second 2. And you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in between. So I'm going to pause the camera, but keep doing that all the way around, where you chain 8 and then do a double crochet into the 6th stitch. I'll see you before I finish the last one. All right, I'm back and I'm finishing up my last one. So I just did a double crochet. That means I need to chain 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now, if I count here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you'll see 6 is actually the first stitch that we worked our chain out of. So instead of doing a double crochet into that stitch, I'm going to be connecting our first round into our original chain. So I'm going to count up 3 stitches, 1, 2, 3 into the chain, because this is our double crochet. And I'm just going to do a slip stitch into that 3rd stitch to close the round. There you go, now it's connected. So earlier when I had my stitch marker in the last chain, so I knew where to stop and not work an extra stitch into the slip stitch, that would have just given an extra stitch right here. So instead of having 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, there might have been a gap of 6. And that's really not that big of a deal. I don't think anyone would ever notice. But yeah. So no matter how many you have in between, even if there's a little extra one, just make sure you work this last chain into the chain to close the round. To start the next round, it's pretty much the same thing. We're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and that counts as our first double crochet. Now, instead of chaining 8, we're going to add 2 and chain a total of 10. So that gives a little bit more room for it to expand as it goes down the web. So now chain 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So just like before, we need to bring this chain over here, except this time it's a lot easier. We don't need to count because we want to just connect it to where that double crochet is. So we're going to do a double crochet into that double crochet. So yarn over and then into the double crochet, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through the first 2 loops, yarn over, pull through the next 2 loops. And then repeat. So we're going to chain 10 again. 1, 2, 9, 10. So there is our 10. Now we need to bring it over and work into the next double crochet. So I'm going to yarn over and then go right into the top of that double crochet. Yarn over, pull through, yarn over through the first 2 loops, yarn over through the next 2 loops. There we go, and then we got our next double crochet. So then we're just gonna keep repeating the same thing. So chain 10, 1, 2, 3, 10. Now, I am going to work this into the next double crochet, but one thing I wanna call out, it is so easy to get all twisted up. On every single web I've made, I've accidentally at some point started working backwards the wrong way. If anything starts to look weird, especially as we go on through the web, make sure you're working in the right direction. You can usually tell, because this is our chains, that's a little bit different than our double crochets. And if you ever get mixed up, kind of find these chains and making sure that you're working around this way and that it doesn't get flipped over or something and you work backwards that way. I've done that. Anyways, so I just did my chain 10, going in the right direction. I'm gonna yarn over and then work into that double crochet right there. Yarn over 2, yarn over 2. There we go. So I'm gonna keep working all the way around like that. I'm gonna pause the camera. You keep doing chain 10 and then double crochet into the double crochet from the last round. I'll see you before I finish this round. I'm back and I'm about to finish our rounds. And just like before, I'm not gonna do a double crochet into this stitch. I wanna slip stitch into the third chain right here. So 1, 2, 3. I'm gonna slip stitch through that chain and then through this stitch. There we go. Now it's all connected. Now we're on to the next round and you'll never guess how it starts by chaining 3. 1, 2, 3. And just like before, we're gonna add 2 to our chain section. So instead of doing 10, we'll be chaining 12. So chain 12. 1, 2, 3, 12. So we have our chain 12 and I am going to double crochet and attach it into this double crochet spot. So yarn over and then up into the stitch of that double crochet, yarn over, pull through, yarn over through the first 2, yarn over through the next 2, and there we go. And then we need to chain 12 again. 1, 2, 11, 12. We have 12. Now I need to double crochet into this double crochet stitch right here. So I'm going to yarn over and then under through both loops, yarn over, pull through, yarn over through the first 2 loops, yarn over through the next 2 loops. So as you can see, it's very repetitive. I'm gonna just keep doing the same thing all the way around, chaining 12 and then double crocheting into the double crochet of the next round. I'm gonna jump ahead, but you keep working all the way around. Okay, I am back. I have my last column to do. I just chained 12. And now to finish it off, I'm gonna slip stitch into the third chain. 1, 2, 3. So I'm gonna go in between that third chain and slip stitch to close it off. All right, you really see it starting to come together now. We just did 1, 2, 3 of those rows and we got 1 more to go. So we're gonna start it off the same way. We're gonna chain 3, 1, 2, 3. And then for our chain across, we need to add 2. So we're gonna chain 14. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Chain 14. Now we need to work a double crochet into that next double crochet spot. So yarn over and then there's the double crochet and then I'm just going to go right in between that stitch right there, yarn over, pull through, yarn over through the first 2, yarn over through the next 2, and there is our double crochet. And now repeat. So chain 14, 1, 2, 13, 14. And now I need to go into the next double crochet spot right there. And as you see, as we get further out, it is really easy to mix it up and go the wrong way. If something feels weird, like I said before, maybe check and make sure you didn't flip around at some point. Okay, so I just did my 14 chains. I'm gonna yarn over and work into that double crochet, yarn over, pull through, yarn over through the first two, yarn over through the next two, and there's our next double crochet. So just like before, just keep repeating that all the way around. I'm gonna pause the camera. I'll see you before we finish. All right, I've come all the way around again, and I've chained 14 from my last section, and I need to slip stitch into the third chain right here. So 1, 2, 3. There we go. We are actually finished now. Now to finish it off, I do one more slip stitch just to kind of knot it in a little bit better. I don't know if that's fully necessary. And then I'll cut the yarn. I leave a little bit of space right here. I'll tell you why in a second. And then pull through. And then pull that tight to make sure it doesn't come undone. There we go. I need to move the camera up. We have our orange spider web. Now I have this end from the end, and then we have this end from the beginning. So I definitely want to hide this one, kind of pull it tight to make sure it doesn't come undone. Now I have my needle, and I'm gonna thread it. And then I'm just gonna kind of weave it in, kind of sew it in to tuck it behind a few stitches. That should be good. Pull it through. And then I take this and cut it. Now that's hidden. Now we still have this end, and you can do the same thing, kind of just sew it down in between here and trim it. But what I ended up doing on this one, if you remember, I had a little spider web hanging off of it. So I left it a little bit longer. This is too long, I'll definitely probably trim it. But yeah, you can add a spider. I'll show you how to add a spider to that if you want to do it that way. Oh, also, I mean, it's not too much different, but look at how like clean and flat this one is, and this one's kind of a mess. That's because I blocked this one, so I'll get into how I did that after. But it will basically flatten it out and make it hold a nice shape. There we go. Hopefully that was clear. And if you have any questions on the spider web, let me know in the comments. Now it's time for spiders. Now it's time to show you how to make our spiders. And similar to white, black is very hard to see, so I'm gonna be using a different color. We're gonna make some turquoise spiders. This is a worsted weight yarn. It's a light worsted weight yarn, so it's still on the smaller size. But like I said earlier, for these spiders, I used a DK weight yarn. So you can see that this one is a little bit bigger. But yeah, just something to think about when you're choosing your yarns. So for those DK spiders, I used a 3.5 millimeter hook. But for this one, I'm gonna do a 3.75. We're gonna start by making a magic circle. So hold the yarn how you regularly do, and then wrap it around your pointer finger so it makes an X. Pinch the X, don't let go of the X, but take it off of your finger. I like to bring this finger up to make some space for the yarn right here. I take my hook, I go through the circle, yarn over, pull through, and then yarn over, pull through again. There's the magic circle. Now it's kind of hard with this type of yarn. It really wants to pull apart. Hopefully you're working with easier yarn. But you see how I have the tail end in the left side of the circle? Make sure you don't let go of it like I just did, and you hold those two together the entire time. So that will be on the left side, and then there's the right side of the circle. Now I'm gonna be working single crochets into the circle. We're gonna do 8 of them. So to do that, I'm gonna go into the circle, yarn over, pull through, and then yarn over through the 2 loops. And that's our first single crochet. Like I said before, pinching these 2 together so they don't get separated. We need to do 7 more single crochets for a total of 8. So here's another one. We're gonna go into the loop, yarn over, pull through, 2 loops on the hook, yarn over through the 2 loops. And then again. So that's 3, 4, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we got our 8 single crochets into the magic circle. Now we need to close it up. So I'm gonna just pull the tail and it should close up. Now, instead of working in rounds this time, I'm gonna do it a little bit different because there's really only 1 round to it, and we're gonna be doing a different thing into each of these 8 stitches. So I'm gonna be going stitch by stitch and telling you what to work into that stitch. So we're gonna start the round by doing a slip stitch into the first stitch. Make sure that you're actually working into the first stitch. Sometimes they get hidden, so you can count back, making sure there's 8. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So this one's pretty obvious, but sometimes they're harder to find. And my first stitches are always harder to work into too. So I'm gonna go into that first stitch, you see it right here, and work a slip stitch. So I'm just gonna grab this and go through both the loops to close the round. So now we have slip stitch into that first stitch. So we're working out of stitch 1, and we are going to chain 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's our 6 chains. Now I'm gonna chain 1 and turn. So we're gonna be working down the opposite side of the chain. And we are going to do a slip stitch into each of the 6 chains that we just made. We did an extra chain right here, so it's easier to turn it. So we are gonna do our first stitch into the second stitch from the hook. Let me show you. This is the first stitch from the hook, and there's the second stitch from the hook. Might look a little different on yours if you're using different type of yarn. So into that second stitch from the hook and do a slip stitch. So I'm going to keep doing a slip stitch all the way down the chain. There's 2, will be a total of 6. 3, 4, 5, and then 6. The reason I do a slip stitch instead of single crochets is because I want the legs of the spider to be narrower. So that's our first leg, and now we need to work our second leg, and we're still working out of the first stitch of the round. So you can kind of see right here where we worked into. I'm actually going to work into that hole into the same first stitch. This right here would be our second stitch, but we're going to do a slip stitch back into the same spot of the first stitch. So this kind of just grounds the leg a little bit and holds it down. Now we're going to repeat the same thing. So chain 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then chain 1 and turn. So basically it's a chain 7. I just said chain 6 plus chain 1 and turn to kind of just demonstrate that there's going to be 6 stitches that we work into. So now from the second loop from the hook, there's the first loop, here's the second loop. We are going to be doing a slip stitch into that second chain from the hook, and then a slip stitch into the next 5 chains. And there's our second leg. Now it's time to work into the next stitch, stitch 2. It's right here. And to do that, we're going to start by doing a slip stitch. So I've slip stitched into stitch 2. And then I'm going to do exactly like I did before. So I'm going to chain 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then turn and work a slip stitch into the second chain from the hook. And then into each chain down. So we have a total of 6. Then just like before, I want to work a slip stitch into the same stitch 2 that we worked out of. There's our next stitch, we don't want to work into that. So just kind of go into the same space and slip stitch to anchor the leg. Now we're going to repeat by doing a chain 7 again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Turn and work a slip stitch into the second chain from the hook. And then keep working all the way down for a total of 6. There we go, we have our first 4 legs. Now we're going to move into stitch 3, which is right here, and just do a slip stitch. And that's all you put into stitch 3. Into stitch 4 and 5, those are going to be kind of like the eyes or the head of the spider. I can't believe I'm making this, I'm so scared of spiders. We are going to be doing 2 treble crochets, so 1 into each stitch. So into stitch 4, the next stitch, we're going to do a triple crochet, so yarn over twice, go into stitch 4, yarn over, pull through, and we should have 4 loops on the hook. Yarn over through the first 2, yarn over through the next 2, and then yarn over through the last 2. That's our first triple crochet. Now we need to do 1 more. So into the next stitch, stitch 5. So yarn over twice, and then into the next stitch, yarn over, pull through, yarn over through the first 2, yarn over through the next 2, yarn over through the last 2. Now it looks kind of weird, but once we work into stitch 6, we're going to do a slip stitch into the next stitch, and that kind of like pulls it down a little bit. Stitch 6, we just did a slip stitch. Now we're going to do a chain 7 to start the legs on the other side. So that's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So turn, skip that first chain, and do a slip stitch into the second chain from the hook, and then a slip stitch into the next 5 down. So you'll have a total of 6. Now I'm going to be working into that same space, stitch 6 again, and doing a slip stitch to kind of hold down that leg, and repeat. So chain 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then into the second hook loop from the hook, a slip stitch, and work your way down so you have a total of 6. Great, now I'm going to slip stitch into stitch 7, working the next one over, and repeat. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then into the second stitch from the hook, slip stitch all the way down, so you have a total of 6. Now, for some reason, a lot of time when I make these spiders, I forget the last leg, so don't forget the last leg. So We just finished this leg. We need to go work back in to the same stitch that we were working out of, stitch 7, there's stitch 8. So I'm gonna go in there and slip stitch to kind of hold the leg down and do the last leg. So chain 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then into the second stitch from the hook, slip stitch, and then work a slip stitch all the way down. Great. Now we are on to the last stitch, stitch 8, which is right here. You may see like another little one right here, but that's actually just the slip stitch from when we joined the round. So we got our last stitch, stitch 8. So I am going to do a slip stitch into stitch 8 to kind of bring this leg down. And then I like to work into that same spot again, right there, and do a single crochet. So yarn over, pull through, this leg's in the way, and then yarn over through to give a little single crochet, give it a little bit of a backside. Now, to end the round, I need to do another slip stitch. Sometimes I work into this next slip stitch right here, and I will right now because I can, but sometimes, and usually with other yarn, it's like too tight. So just kind of like put a slip stitch wherever you can get the hook through on that side to kind of pull it in. So I'm gonna go into that slip stitch right here. Just work wherever you can, and then do a slip stitch. A slip stitch into a slip stitch. Now, depending on how many spiders you want to make, I did 4. So just repeat this how many ever times. For these spiders, to attach them, I just tie these 2 strings around here. It's pretty simple. But for this one, I do sew it in. So if you are gonna sew a spider onto this little dangling part right here, leave a little bit more room when you cut this yarn. So I'm gonna leave a little bit more space right now. This is probably way more than enough. I always say that, and then sometimes it's not, but okay. So cut the yarn, pull this through. You'll notice there's like a gap right here. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. But all you have to do to close that is just pull this end from our magic circle from earlier. Almost hit the camera. Pull it tight, and you see it closed up. Okay. So now you see we have this long end coming out where we were just working. I want to bring it up towards this circle right here. So I am going to thread a needle with this end that we were just working with and kind of just bring it up towards that other loose end up there. My 2 ends right next to each other. This is the end from the magic circle, pulling it tight one more time, and then I'm just going to tie them in a knot. There we go, we have our spider. Now I'm going to show you how I attach them. Actually, that's not true. I need to block them first. So similar to like I was talking about before, about how this kind of is in better shape, I try to kind of block the spiders too. I don't know how well it worked. Now we need to block our piece, which essentially means we need to pin it down on something to kind of give it the shape we want. I never block my work, rarely. So I'm not the right person to teach you all about that if you don't know much about it. But I'm just gonna show you what I did for this collar. So depending on what kind of yarn you use will kind of affect how you did it. So for this cotton nylon yarn, I used hot steam. So I took a steamer, which I don't have with me right now, and kind of steamed it before to kind of like dampen it and prep it. And then I brought it to my block. And then I kind of just pinned around the center of the circle, kind of make it the shape I want. Then I went into my double crochets. and you're kind of gonna need a lot of pins. But then I take the edges out and kind of pull them. It doesn't work. I don't know how much it stays, but I think it adds a little bit to it. And then I kind of do it to the next level too. There you go. And then, so I have this all pinned out, and then I will go over and steam it again, and then sit, let it dry, and take it off, and it should hold a better shape. Now I'm gonna add a spider into this corner. Let's see, do I have enough space? Yeah. So I'm gonna start by taking the head and kind of pin the head down. And then I like having the front 2 legs kind of go up and the back 2 legs kind of go down. So I'll take the front leg up and then the front leg up. And then on the other side too, pull the front leg up. And then the opposite for the back legs. So take the back leg down, back leg down, back leg down, back leg down. That's it. Except I'm not gonna show you how I steam it because I don't have my steamer with me here. But once it's dry, we're gonna pull all these pins out. All right, it is time to attach our spiders. So we wanna make sure we have our spider web the front way up. This is the back side. You can see the back side of the chains where they have that center, I don't know what it's called, just like nub down the middle, versus the front side with our nice V's. So front side up, we're gonna find the spider. We did 2. The one with the longer string is for the dangling part, but this one is just gonna go right on the web. So find where you wanna put it and kind of like place around all your spiders if you have multiple ones. And then once you find a spot that looks good, flip it over. Kind of find where the strings are. Then we're gonna take it and just tie it around the web. Very straightforward. 2. I did 2 knots. You could just do 1 to start and kind of like flip it over and kind of, if you're doing more spiders, place them around and make sure you like where it is in case you want to change one of the spots later. Or maybe even once you place the spiders, try it on your pet to see if you like where it like lands when they're wearing it. And then if you're happy with them, then you're gonna go in and cut that string off. I guess I am, so I'm gonna tie it one more time for good luck. This isn't the most secure thing. You can maybe even like add a little bit of glue if you really don't want it to fall off, but it should be fine. And then I cut the edges. There we go. We got our first spider attached. Now we need to attach this other spider. And this goes on the end. Now this is a little bit longer. The white one is about 2 inches. So I'm gonna try and match it. So about right here, I'm gonna cut this extra yarn off. That's a little bit short, but it doesn't really matter. So I'm gonna take the long end, thread the needle. So I'm gonna take my needle, I'm gonna put it through, I'm gonna like actually pierce it through the yarn. So make sure it's flat and going the way you want. I'm just gonna grab it right here just to show you. Whoa, that's way off camera. Okay, just to show you, and I'm gonna go through the yarn, like right there. That was a little bit low. Go a little bit higher than me. Now I'm gonna flip this over. So you'll see it's coming through the bottom end of the red yarn and also the bottom end of the spider. So this might vary for you a little bit depending on where it's coming up, but we're gonna go back in through the red yarn and through the spider. So if you're higher up right now, you might want to go back down to the bottom, but since we're at the bottom, we're gonna go in through the top. So back through the red yarn and through the spider again. I'm gonna bring the camera down a little bit. So now we've come back through the yarn and the spider, and we wanna go back through the spider. This time it doesn't have to go through the yarn. So what I do is just kind of like sew it around this piece of yarn. So we're coming up this side, and now I'm gonna go through the spider on the opposite side. Oh, and I just poked myself. And then go back through again. And I just kind of go around and try to cover the spider, the red part of the spider. Oops, got a leg. So on the real spider, this will be white, and we're trying to cover the rest of the red with black. So I'm just gonna keep going all the way around. One thing I thought about too, instead of just trying to wrap it fully to hide all of the white, you could just get like a small black piece of felt and cover the back of the spider. That way none of the white will show. But yeah, just keep sewing around and around until that red, well, for you, white yarn is covered. All right, that's as much as I'm going to do, but as you can see, there's still like some red you can see. On here, there's a very bit of white. Like I said, you can cover it with felt, like some black felt, so you won't see it if it bothers you. But to finish it off, I'm gonna take this needle out, grab both the ends, tie it in a knot, tie it in another knot, trim the ends. And then if you want, I can't always get it every time, but you can try and trim off this little like extra end right there if it's showing. I didn't get all of it. That's okay. There we go. But that's it. And there you go. Now you know how to make your crochet spiderweb pet collar, and your pet is gonna be super cute and spooky on Halloween. Thanks for watching. If you ended up making this, let me know in the comments. And of course, if you have any question, meet me in the comments too. I'm here to help. And thanks again for watching. I'll see you next time.